The story behind the Ravi Zacharias allegations, Part 1, lawsuits, NDAs, and email threads. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up and comment your thoughts below. For more videos and tips, subscribe to our channel. No matter what your dog's problem behavior is, be it jumping, peeing inappropriately, aggression, pulling on the leash, or whatever, there is one solution that can help. Click on the link in the description box below. When news broke of sexting allegations leveled at Christian apologist Ravi Zacharias in 2017, the evangelical world collectively held its breath. And when those allegations seemed to be addressed and resolved, we let it out again. The thought that one of the most influential Christian leaders of the modern age could do something so destructive and then lie about it was troubling, to say the least. Zacharias passed away in May of this year, and we published a handful of tributes to the late apologist who was famous the world over. In the years before his death, many articles were published about Zacharias had said or the way he eloquently explained a certain aspect of the Christian faith. When accounts surfaced again this year with new allegations of disturbing sexual misconduct on Zacharias, our team of researchers took a renewed interest. After the Roy's report published articles exploring one allegation in greater depth, we felt it would be negligent of us to gloss over the information without at least looking into the claims being made. Investigators spoke to Lori Ann Thompson, the Canadian woman who accused Zacharias of preying on her and drawing her into a sexual relationship in 2016. Investigators also spoke to Thompson's sister, Tamara Battisti, Thompson's husband, Brad, a close personal friend of the Thompsons, and a Christian scholar who looked into the matter with the help of a private investigator. Investigators also spoke to a former employee of a spa Zacharias co-owned, who wished to remain anonymous. We reached out to Ravi Zacharias International Ministries (RZIM) and the Christian and Missionary Alliance, the denomination that ordained Zacharias and that conducted an internal inquiry into his actions pertaining to Thompson's allegations starting in 2017. While our work is not done looking into this matter, the following is what the investigators have discovered so far. At certain points, investigators will refer to other outlets' articles, especially in cases where investigators were not able to make contact with the people who gave statements or information. Lori Ann Thompson's 2016 allegations against Ravi Zacharias. Lori Ann's husband, Brad, was a huge fan of Zacharias and his ministry prior to meeting him in person, according to a close friend of the Thompsons. In fact, Brad donated a substantial amount of money to UCB Canada, the country's largest Christian broadcasting network. While Brad was mostly interested in supporting the station's Christian music and gospel programs, his contributions also supported the airing of some of Zacharias' content on that station. Tax statements from 2015 to 2017. The Thompsons shared some information, and it shows that Brad, both personally and through the electrical company he owns, donated substantial amounts, one year exceeding $100,000, to UCB, along with other charitable donations to organizations such as Samaritan's Purse and United Way. In 2014, Brad was invited by the Chief Operating Officer of UCB Canada, James Hunt, to sponsor a table at the Businessman's Luncheon in Kingston, Ontario. Zacharias was the keynote speaker at this event. The Thompsons invited two other couples and a friend of Lori Ann's to sit at their table at the event. After Zacharias' message, Brad and Lori Ann met the apologist briefly, and this is when Zacharias' assistant took Lori Ann's email and gave Zacharias in exchange. Prior to this point, Lori Ann was not familiar with Zacharias and his ministry. The second time Brad and Lori Ann met Zacharias was in June 2015. Brad says Zacharias invited the couple to RZIM's Canadian fundraiser event called Builders, which was an invitation-only event. Brad also said Zacharias invited the couple to dine privately with him the evening before the event. However, in Zacharias' account of events, he claims the couple invited him and his wife, Margie, to dinner. Originally, Lori Ann and Brad corresponded with Zacharias in an email between the three of them. Over time, Lori Ann shared with the apologist, whom she considered a father figure and grew to trust, about her abuse-ridden childhood. Brad did not keep up with the communication, and eventually, Zacharias requested he and she correspond via BlackBerry Messenger (BBM), citing security reasons. And that's when things turned inappropriate, according to Lori Ann. Both Zacharias and Lori Ann acknowledge that they communicated over BBM at the request of Zacharias. In a lawsuit Zacharias filed against the Thompsons in 2017, his lawyer writes, as plaintiff does with colleagues, certain friends and family members with whom he engages in more substantive communications, plaintiff asked Ms. Thompson that she communicate with him via private BlackBerry Messenger (BBM), a more secure method of communication than email given its superior security and encryption capabilities. Zacharias maintained the reason he used BBM was that he traveled overseas frequently, sometimes to countries where his Christian message would be seen as threatening, even illegal, and didn't want his contacts or phone calls to be used to put others in harm's way. It's important to note that BBM calls are not traceable, however phone records investigators obtained show that Lori Ann received calls from Zacharias' personal cell phone as well as BBM calls immediately following these that lasted upwards of 35 minutes. In September 2016, Lori Ann was visiting her sister, Tamara Battisti, in the United States. Battisti was the first person to whom Lori Ann disclosed the relationship with Zacharias that had, according to her, turned sexual. While Lori Ann didn't claim to have been physically alone with Zacharias at any point, Battisti says Lori Ann disclosed that their relationship involved phone sex and her sending him nude pictures. Battisti indicated that it sounded predatory on Zacharias' part considering he was some 30 years Lori Ann's senior and in a position of spiritual authority, and that Lori Ann was likely trying to address a father wound inflicted on her from her childhood. This was the beginning of Lori Ann coming to believe she had been preyed upon by someone she trusted as a pastoral figure. As Julie Roys reports, after this point in 2016, Lori Ann sought in-person counseling from Jerry and Denise Basel, who confirmed to Roys they supported Lori Ann as she broke off her contact with Zacharias. It was also while in the Basels' care that Lori Ann told Brad about her private contact with Zacharias. The email exchange the Basels, who started the Father's Heart Intensive Christian Counseling Ministry in Cleveland, Georgia, are also looped into a thread of emails that the investigators obtained. The emails, which show an exchange between Lori Ann, the Basels, and Zacharias, were given to Battisti by Thompson in the event something happened to her. When the investigators spoke to Thompson, she indicated she and Brad were both suicidal at points during the disclosure and she feared she might take her own life. The emails we obtained show an exchange between Lori Ann and Zacharias where she says she can no longer keep their contact a secret and not only needs to break it off but also tell Brad about it. The email, dated October 29, 2016, reads as follows: email addresses and names of Lori Ann's children have been redacted. From, Lori Ann Thompson. Date: October 29, 2016 at 1:04 p.m. Eastern Daylight Saving Time to Ravi. Subject, letter. Dear Ravi, I can no longer continue, even in the seams of my soul, tuck away what I know to be sin against God and each of our spouses. Sin, as you know, always divides and devours. I cannot, however, continue to live with myself, with the guilt and shame that I feel about what has happened. In order to move forward with my spouse, I am planning on telling him what has happened tonight. The cost of this has been staggeringly high, and I have no idea if my marriage will be salvaged. All I can do is beg his forgiveness and try to heal so that something of this nature never happens again. Please do to reply, as I simply cannot hear from you or see you ever again. I have no control over how Brad will respond to or handle the information, but I can no longer hold this secret and its soul-searing shame. Let me say I have 3 daughters. If one of my daughters was approached by a man 30 years her senior in a position of power and trust, and this type of thing had occurred, I would be furious with him. I suspect so would you if it were one of your precious girls. You, sir, are that man. You took advantage of a devastated daughter, and left her devoured once again. I am so appalled that I allowed myself to enter into this level of deception. You took and I gave a part of my soul and later my body that was not yours. The investment in relationship from taking my email to taking off my clothes makes me weep with the despair, feeling desolate, devastated, and disgusted. As for always, I recant on a vow I cannot keep. It is only he that will be with me always. Lori Ann. A string of emails from Zacharias' personal account was sent a few hours later, from Ravi. Date, October 29, 2016 at 4:38 p.m. Eastern Daylight Saving Time to Lori Ann Thompson. Subject, letter, are you going to tell him it's me? Can we not meet at least once before you do this? Please, please. You promised you wouldn't, Lori Ann. If you betray me here, I will have no option but to bid this world goodbye, I promise. Little did I know that was the most dark and accursed day of my life. You will not hear from me again, from Lori Ann Thompson. Date, October 29, 2016 at 6:15 p.m. Eastern Daylight Saving Time to Ravi. Subject, letter. We are Lori Ann's counselors and she is currently receiving intensive counseling with us to find healing and restoration for her marriage. It is not her intent to share what has happened to anyone except her husband, which is necessary for any hope of marital restoration. And we are bound by confidentiality. We need some assurance from you that you will not harm yourself. Otherwise, we will find it necessary to contact 911 in your location. We await your prompt response. Thank you. From Ravi. Date, October 29, 2016 at 6:18 p.m. Eastern Daylight Saving Time to Lori Ann Thompson. Subject, letter. I am fine, thank you. I am just concerned about her. Thank you, please tell her I am praying for her. She is very much in my prayers. In the months that followed, the Thompsons seemed to extend forgiveness to Zacharias. In the emails, it appears that while the couple was devastated by the events that allegedly transpired between Zacharias and Lori Ann, they offered him forgiveness relatively quickly. In a letter Lori Ann wrote about the situation, she says, "Initially my husband sent Ravi email of forgiveness. While a necessary last step, it was a premature first step." The Thompsons' close friend interpreted their initial forgiveness of Zacharias as Brad's attempt to take the higher road. However, Zacharias maintained that the Thompsons were extending forgiveness he had not asked for in an effort to trick him into admitting fault on his part. In a lawsuit Zacharias filed against the couple in 2017, Zacharias' lawyer wrote, "As part of their scheme, defendants began sending a series of emails that were blatant attempts to extract statements from plaintiff that could be misconstrued as an apology or admission for wrongful acts and thus used to extort money from plaintiff. For example, Mr. Thompson told plaintiff that he had forgiven plaintiff despite the fact that the plaintiff had not asked for forgiveness. The emails investigators obtained seem to show a different story, though. On November 18, 2016, Brad wrote to Zacharias, "Your momentary failure is safe with us, we assume ours is safe with you." While Zacharias doesn't admit fault, nor does he ask for forgiveness, he does seem to receive the couple's forgiveness with extreme gratitude. In an email responding to Brad's words, Zacharias writes, in part, "My dear Brad and Lori Ann. I received your message a couple of hours ago and I kid you not, like Pilgrim of old I felt the burden I had carried roll down as he ascended the hill with the cross on it. I truly sobbed my heart out when I read your last paragraph, Brad. That is the most incredible thing to read, that you would be cheering me on. We sing so much about grace, but there is nothing like being on the receiving end when it is a pure gift and completely underserved by the recipient." Lori Ann believes Zacharias not only took advantage of her vulnerability but also the couple's forgiveness. By December of 2016, a shift in how the Thompsons saw the situation had occurred. In a letter dated December 27, 2016, Lori Ann and Brad both expressed how they believe Zacharias subtly pressed Lori Ann into a sexual relationship. Brad, who looked up to Zacharias as a hero of the faith, had a hard time reconciling the hero he admired with the way Zacharias had allegedly groomed his wife. The fact that she had shared her abuse and my struggles with him and he had full knowledge of her vulnerability and walked in and abused her too, Brad wrote, expressing his incredulity. Lori Ann and Brad's forgiveness eventually turned to anger, especially after Zacharias implied in an email he hadn't done anything to solicit the pictures Lori Ann sent. This is an excerpt from that email from Zacharias, dated January 24, 2017. "Let me answer your question as best as I can without the risk of seeming to avoid the full force of the responsibility. Whatever the reason, the blame is real and inescapable. But to answer your question, I can say from my conscience that I never initiated or proposed that action. Brad, I am not given to that kind of perverse desire. In 70 years I have never even thought of that possibility with anyone. And once that came about, I can also say that I repeatedly made every effort to not let it continue and suggested that I even block my mail, which I did. Each time I asked for no further contact, an agreement was made, and never once did I ever initiate it again. I think I shall leave it as enough said. If any of this is disputed, I shall yield to the other view because I have no desire to intensify the pain and bring division. I speak with my conscience, and if wrong will stand corrected. By the way, with the determination to not continue what was wrong, I purposely never met her even once. When she paid a visit to Atlanta for other reasons, I deliberately was out of town. In 52 years of ministry I have never been with a woman alone, and that will never change. It was this denial of wrongdoing on Zacharias' part that infuriated Lori Ann and Brad. The Thompsons pursue legal action against Ravi Zacharias in April 2017. The Thompsons sent a letter via their attorney, Mark Bryant, to Zacharias threatening litigation. The couple asked for $5 million in damages. According to Thompson's friend, the couple wasn't looking to make money from an unhappy situation. According to the friend, the Thompsons are well off and have long been uber generous with their wealth. This portrayal of the couple's financial status is corroborated by Royce, who also obtained the Thompsons' tax records. Tax returns the Thompsons gave show that from 2010 to 2017, the Thompsons made between $193,000 to $552,000 each of those years. In 2017, the year the Thompsons sent the demand letter to Zacharias, the couple made $443,000. Reliable sources can confirm that what Roy's reported here is accurate. According to Thompson's friend, asking for monetary compensation in the letter from their attorney just skewed it all and made them look as if they were after the money. If you like our videos, help us reach 10,000 subs and hit the subscribe button now. Lori Ann maintains that the reason she and Brad decided to send the letter was to prevent Zacharias from harming other people. She also says they were following Bryant's legal advice, who suggested they put a price on their demand in order for it to be taken seriously. In the letter, the Thompsons ask Zacharias to take either of the following actions. You can notify your board of directors and all your insurance carriers for your ministry, your professional coverage, and your homeowner's insurance of pending litigation, the letter reads. It also stipulates Zacharias must not alter, modify, or destroy any evidence that may be in his possession concerning the Thompsons. The second option states the Thompsons will sign a release of you and your church and ministry in exchange for a certified check in the amount of $5 million. Ravi Zacharias files a lawsuit in August of 2017. Zacharias filed a Racketeer-Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act (RICO) suit against the couple, claiming they were trying to exploit him. Zacharias claimed the couple's actions fell into the racketeering category due to the fact that they had attempted to exploit another minister prior to their interaction with him. Brad had filed a lawsuit against a Canadian pastor, John Visser, in 2008. As the Thompsons explain, Brad was a new Christian and in a pastoral counseling relationship with Visser at the time. While under Visser's pastoral care, Brad had agreed to invest money in Visser's businesses. It should be noted that Brad, who was not married to Lori Ann at the time of this lawsuit but was married to his first wife, did ask for monetary compensation in this case. His company lost more than $355,000 in the investment, which he says he was attempting to recoup. Brad dropped the suit when Visser went bankrupt. Lori Ann was not involved in the lawsuit. Additionally, Visser's ordaining denomination, the Christian Reformed Church in North America, determined he was guilty of abuse of the office of a minister of the Word and of deviating from godly conduct, and therefore, should be suspended for at least 90 days from the office of minister of the Word. Visser did return to his ministry position after that 90-day suspension. Another point should be made here about the fact that Zacharias requested he and Lori Ann communicate over BBM. If indeed, the couple was trying to exploit Zacharias for monetary or some other kind of gain, logic suggests they would have taken pains to capture the evidence using a more recordable method of communication. In his lawsuit, Zacharias claimed that the couple was trying to damage his reputation and his relationship with his family by demanding he go to his board notifying them of the pending litigation. The lawsuit explains why this would cause damage to Zacharias, as plaintiff's wife and daughter, among others, serve on RZIM's board of directors. And while Zacharias does not dispute the words recorded in the email exchanges between Lori Ann, Brad, and himself, even the ones on October 29, 2016, where he appears to threaten suicide, he does claim that the email from Lori Ann's counselors represents the couple's attempt to extort him. The lawsuit reads, "On information and belief, the above info," referring to the email written by Lori Ann's counselors, "was not written by a counselor but, instead, by the Thompsons or some other third party that conspired with the Thompsons as part of the scheme to extort money from plaintiff." However, Royce reports that she reached out to the Bosels and confirmed the email was, in fact, written by them. It should be noted that if that were not true, if the email had not been written by them, as Christian counselors and leaders, Jerry is an ordained minister, it would behoove them to set the record straight. Another point from Zacharias' lawsuit claims that the Thompsons tried repeatedly to get Lori Ann and Zacharias to meet alone together. The Thompsons deny this claim, and at least in the email exchange, it is Zacharias who asks to meet. The Thompsons and Zacharias sign an NDA. The lawsuit was settled November 9, 2017 before going to court. It was at this point that Lori Ann, Brad, and Zacharias signed a non-disclosure agreement (NDA), barring them from discussing the details of the settlement. As Lori Ann sent the emails, phone records, and the letter voicing her side of the story to Battisti before the lawsuit was even filed, Battisti was free to give investigators the documents obtained. In a video she posted to her website, Lori Ann says she signed the NDA under excruciating circumstances and that she regrets doing so. The NDA itself brings up a lot of questions. Ministry Watch, an independent donor advocate organization that profiles charities, churches, and para-church organizations, wrote this about Zacharias' 2017 settlement with the Thompsons: "The only reason we can see why Zacharias would settle this case before it went to trial and use an NDA is that the trial would bring out damaging evidence against him. If Zacharias had evidence which would prove those seeking to extort money from him were lying, it is hard to imagine he would not pursue this even if the legal costs were high." In December 2017, Zacharias gave the following statement about his correspondence with the Thompsons and the lawsuit. "In October 2014, I spoke at a conference in Canada. At the conclusion of my talk, I met a couple who expressed an interest in our ministry. The wife asked if I would reach out to her husband because he had questions about the Christian faith. As requested, I followed up by sending an email and a book to him and invited him to consider attending one of our educational programs at Ravi Zacharias International Ministries (RZIM). Some months later, I traveled with my wife and one of our daughters to another part of Canada for a speaking engagement. The couple attended this event and invited my wife and me to dinner at a local restaurant afterward. That was the second and last time I was ever in the same room with either of them. Subsequently, she began to contact me via the email address I had used to contact her husband after first meeting them. My responses were usually brief. Then, last year, she shockingly sent me extremely inappropriate pictures of herself unsolicited. I clearly instructed her to stop contacting me in any form, I blocked her messages, and I resolved to terminate all contact with her. In late 2016, she sent an email informing me she planned to tell her husband about the inappropriate pictures she had sent and to claim that I had solicited them. In April 2017, together they sent me, through an attorney, a letter demanding money. I immediately notified members of my board, and as they advised, I personally engaged legal counsel. In response to the demand for money, my attorneys filed a publicly available lawsuit under the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act (RICO). The other side requested mediation rather than going to trial. We agreed to mediation and we reached an agreement in November 2017 to resolve the matter and dismiss my lawsuit. All communication with both of them has concluded, and the legal matters have been resolved. However, at this time, unfortunately I am legally prevented from answering or even discussing the questions and claims being made by some, other than to say that each side paid for their own legal expenses and no ministry funds were used. I have learned a difficult and painful lesson through this ordeal. As a husband, father, grandfather, and leader of a Christian ministry, I should not have engaged in ongoing communication with a woman other than my wife. I failed to exercise wise caution and to protect myself from even the appearance of impropriety, and for that I am profoundly sorry. I have acknowledged this to my Lord, my wife, my children, our ministry board, and my colleagues. Let me state categorically that I never met this woman alone, publicly or privately. The question is not whether I solicited or sent any illicit photos or messages to another woman. I did not, and there is no evidence to the contrary, but rather, whether I should have been a willing participant in any extended communication with a woman not my wife. The answer, I can unequivocally say, is no, and I fully accept responsibility. In all my correspondence with thousands of people in 45 years of ministry, I have never been confronted with a situation such as this, and God and my family and close friends know how grieved I have been. In my 45 years of marriage to Margie, I have never engaged in any inappropriate behavior of any kind. I love my wife with all my heart and have been absolutely faithful to her these more than 16,000 days of marriage, and have exercised extreme caution in my daily life and travels, as everyone who knows me is aware. I have long made it my practice not to be alone with a woman other than Margie and our daughters, not in a car, a restaurant, or anywhere else. Upon reflection, I now realize that the physical safeguards I have long practiced to protect my integrity should have extended to include digital communications safeguards. I believe, and indeed would counsel others, that the standards of personal conduct are necessarily higher for Christian leaders. The Lord rescued me at the age of 17, and I promised to leave no stone unturned in my pursuit of truth. He entrusted me with this calling. It is His. Any opportunities I have been given are from Him. My life is not my own, it belongs to God. As long as He gives me life and breath, I will serve out this calling He has given me. I am committed to finishing well, using whatever years He grants me to share His love and forgiveness, truth and grace, with people everywhere who are looking for meaning and purpose and hope. I bear no ill will toward anybody. God is the God of healing, and He promises a new day. May that be true by His grace. Lori Ann believes Zacharias broke the terms of their NDA by publishing this statement. So does the attorney representing her now, Boz Shavitian, who is a victim advocate lawyer and also one of Billy Graham's grandchildren. Speaking to Royce, Shavitian said, "At the time, my clients made the very difficult decision to abide by the legally binding agreement even though Zacharias had apparently decided to do otherwise." Lori Ann also told us that she found out later that the authors of the Christian articles reached out to the Thompsons' former attorney, Bryant, to get a statement from the couple, but that Bryant chose not to pass on the message. He believed the couple would be troubled by it. Does Ravi Zacharias have the final word? After the Christian article came out, it appeared Zacharias had the last word on the matter. The evangelical world seemed to move on from the story. However, there is more to report and more of the story to tell. Zacharias is no longer here to deny allegations, yet it is clear Lori Ann Thompson still lives with the impact of the alleged abuse. Zacharias himself admitted that he used poor judgment in his extended communication with Thompson. What is to be gained from reporting this? And what can we learn from this modern-day tragedy, especially as leaders? For every Christian, whether a leader or not, this is a cautionary tale. This is Luke for Christian News Today. Please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you for watching.